I ran from the Alpha King, then woke up as his promised bride. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our future videos. It only takes a moment. It is completely free, and it is the best way to support us as we continue bringing you dramatic, emotional, and unforgettable stories like this one. Your support truly means everything to us. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. We always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel and learning where our amazing viewers are joining us from today. Now let us begin today's story. I used to believe running away could change destiny, until destiny quietly waited for me at the end of every path. The Moon Festival arrived only once every 10 years, transforming the entire Silver Crescent Kingdom into a sea of glowing lanterns, white flowers, and shimmering silver banners that danced beneath the light of the full moon. Wolves from every allied pack gathered inside the magnificent capital to celebrate peace, ancient traditions, and the blessing of the moon goddess. Music echoed through marble streets while children laughed beside crystal fountains. Elders shared forgotten stories beneath blooming moon lilies, and countless families looked toward the royal palace, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legendary Alpha King, whose wisdom had united rival kingdoms without conquering them. Yet hidden among the cheerful crowds walked a young Omega whose heart carried only fear. Lyra Ashford pulled the hood of her pale cloak lower across her face as she quietly slipped through the festival, carefully avoiding every royal guard she spotted. She had heard the story since childhood. Every generation, the Alpha King searched for the mysterious promised bride chosen by the moon goddess herself. No one knew who she would be until the ancient moon promise awakened. Some believed becoming the promised bride was the greatest honor imaginable. Others whispered that it meant surrendering the freedom to choose one's own future. Lyra had promised herself she would never allow fate to decide her life. She wanted a future shaped by kindness, purpose, and her own choices, not by forgotten prophecies written long before she was born. She passed beneath glowing lanterns suspended from ancient oak trees as the evening ceremony began. High above the palace courtyard, King Lucian Ravenshade stepped onto the marble balcony overlooking the thousands gathered below. His black and silver ceremonial robes reflected the moonlight, while the royal crest shimmered upon his shoulders. The crowd erupted into respectful applause, yet Lucian's calm silver eyes searched neither for admiration nor celebration. Instead, they quietly scanned the gathering with thoughtful patience, as though waiting for something only he understood. Lyra noticed him for only a brief second before turning away. She had expected arrogance from a king. Instead, she saw unexpected gentleness. That only confused her more. Suddenly, the ancient moon bell rang once. Every conversation stopped. Elder priestesses slowly carried a glowing crystal bowl toward the center of the plaza where an enormous circle carved with forgotten lunar symbols rested within polished white stone. The oldest priestess raised her hands toward the full moon. Tonight, she announced softly, the moon goddess shall reveal whether the promise still sleeps or whether destiny has returned. Lyra felt an unexpected warmth spread through her left wrist. Startled, she instinctively covered the spot beneath her sleeve. A faint silver glow pulsed beneath her skin before disappearing almost immediately. Panic raced through her heart. She quietly stepped backward through the crowd, hoping no one had noticed. Then the crystal bowl suddenly released a brilliant pillar of silver light into the sky. Every lantern flickered at once. The ground beneath the ancient moon's circle trembled gently. Elder priestesses exchanged astonished glances as glowing symbols began appearing across the marble floor, extending like flowing rivers directly toward the place where Lyra stood hidden among the crowd. Her breathing quickened. She looked once toward the palace balcony and found King Lucian already, looking directly at her, not with triumph, but with quiet concern. Fear overwhelmed reason. Before anyone could move, Lyra turned and ran through the crowded streets toward the forbidden forest beyond the city gates. She never heard the Alpha King call for anyone to stop following her. She only heard the pounding of her own heartbeat as silver moonlight guided her deeper into the ancient woods where no festival lantern had ever reached. Moments later, the towering ruins of a forgotten temple emerged between the trees, glowing softly as though they had been waiting for her arrival for centuries. As Lyra crossed the broken stone threshold, the ancient symbols beneath her feet burst into radiant silver light, and the world around her disappeared into silence. When Lyra finally opened her eyes, she expected to find cold forest ground beneath her and towering trees stretching toward the moonlit sky. Instead, she found herself resting upon a smooth white stone platform surrounded by enormous silver pillars carved with symbols that shimmered as though they were alive. Above her, there was no ordinary ceiling. The sanctuary opened directly to the heavens where countless stars circled around an impossibly bright full moon. Gentle silver light flowed through the ancient chamber like a peaceful river, filling the air with quiet warmth instead of fear. She slowly sat upright, her heart racing as she searched for the forest she had entered only moments before. It had vanished completely. The forgotten temple that had appeared as weathered ruins now stood whole and magnificent, untouched by time. Delicate white flowers bloomed between polished marble stones. Crystal fountains reflected the moonlight with perfect clarity, and every carved symbol seemed to breathe softly with ancient life. Lyra instinctively looked toward her left wrist. A graceful silver mark shaped like an elegant crescent surrounded by delicate vines had appeared upon her skin. It glowed faintly before settling into a soft, constant radiance. She gently touched it, but the mark felt warm rather than painful. Before she could gather her thoughts, the sound of quiet footsteps echoed through the sanctuary. Several women dressed in flowing white ceremonial robes entered the chamber, carrying glowing lanterns crafted from crystal. Their expressions changed the moment they saw the silver mark upon Lyra's wrist. One by one, they respectfully lowered themselves to one knee. The eldest among them, whose silver hair reached almost to her waist, smiled with peaceful wonder. "After centuries of silence," she whispered, "the moon promise has awakened once again." Lyra immediately stood, confused by the unexpected reverence. "There has been a mistake," she replied quickly. "I do not belong here. I only ran into the forest." The elder priestess slowly approached without fear or urgency. "No one enters this sanctuary by accident," she answered gently. "The moon temple only opens for the one it has awaited." Lyra shook her head. "I am not who you believe I am." The elder's kind smile never faded. "That decision has never belonged to us." She carefully gestured toward a large circular mirror framed with white stone standing at the center of the sanctuary. Curious despite herself, Lyra slowly stepped closer. Instead of reflecting only her face, the mirror revealed something extraordinary. Around her shoulders shimmered a delicate silver mantle formed entirely from moonlight, while the glowing mark upon her wrist extended into graceful patterns across her sleeves before fading into elegant white garments unlike anything she had worn before. She looked down in astonishment. Her simple traveling clothes had quietly transformed into flowing white and silver ceremonial attire embroidered with ancient lunar symbols. Nothing about the change felt heavy or restrictive. Instead, the garments seemed remarkably light, as though woven from moonlight itself. The elder priestess softly spoke the words every generation had preserved in hope. "Welcome, promised bride." Lyra stepped backward almost immediately. "No," she answered firmly. "I never agreed to this." The elder inclined her head respectfully. "Nor were you ever expected to agree before learning the truth." That answer caught Lyra by surprise. She had expected demands, commands, or declarations. Instead, she heard only patience. Before she could ask another question, every lantern inside the sanctuary brightened simultaneously. The enormous entrance doors slowly opened, allowing cool moonlight to spill across the marble floor. Standing quietly beyond the threshold was King Lucian Ravenshade. He entered alone, without guards, without ceremony, and without reaching toward her. The moment he crossed into the sanctuary, he respectfully lowered himself to one knee before the ancient moon altar, keeping his eyes lowered as though honoring something far greater than his own crown. His calm voice echoed gently through the silent chamber. "Your choice has always belonged to you, Lyra. I have come only to tell you the truth, never to take your freedom away." Lyra remained perfectly still as King Lucian Ravenshade continued kneeling before the moon altar. The silence inside the sanctuary felt unlike any silence she had ever known. It carried no pressure, No expectation, only patience. She had spent years believing every story about the Alpha King ended with power and obedience, yet the man before her displayed neither. He did not even look directly at her until she quietly spoke. "If I truly have a choice," Lyra asked cautiously, "why does everyone call me the promised bride?" Lucien slowly rose to his feet, keeping a respectful distance between them. "Because that is what the Moon Temple recognizes," he answered calmly. "Not what I demand." The elder priestesses quietly stepped back, allowing the ancient sanctuary itself to become the witness to their conversation. Lyra crossed her arms, trying to steady the uncertainty inside her heart. "Then tell me the truth. Every story I have heard says the promised bride belongs to the Alpha King." Lucien gently shook his head. "Then every story you heard was incomplete." He turned toward the towering wall behind the moon altar where countless silver carvings stretched from floor to ceiling. As he approached, the moon promise mark upon Lyra's wrist glowed softly once again. The ancient symbols immediately awakened, illuminating one after another until an enormous mural appeared before them. It showed the first Alpha King standing beside a young woman beneath the light of the moon goddess. Neither stood above the other. Instead, they stood side by side with their hands joined equally beneath a silver crescent. The elder priestess quietly read the ancient inscription that appeared beneath the mural. "Strength without compassion cannot protect the world. Compassion without freedom cannot heal the world. Only together shall the promise endure." Lyra studied the image in silence. It looked nothing like the legends she had grown up hearing. "So the bride was never a prize," she whispered. "Never," Lucien replied. "She was always a partner." As the final word echoed through the sanctuary, another section of the wall illuminated. This time the mural revealed generations of Alpha Kings standing alone before the Moon Temple. Every one of them carried a quiet expression of hope mixed with acceptance. Besides several of them stood a promised bride. Others stood alone. Lyra noticed something unexpected. Some of them never found her. Lucien nodded. Some found her, and she chose another path. Lyra looked at him in surprise. "The Moon Temple allowed that. It always has." He smiled gently. "A promise without freedom is only another prison." Those words settled deeply within her heart. For the first time since entering the sanctuary, the fear she had carried since childhood began to loosen its grip. Before she could respond, the center of the marble floor shimmered with flowing silver light. A circular platform slowly rose from beneath the sanctuary, carrying an ancient crystal book bound in white stone and moon silver. The elder priestesses lowered their heads with quiet reverence. "The Book of the First Promise," one whispered. As Lyra stepped closer, the book slowly opened by itself. Its pages were completely blank for only a brief moment before elegant silver letters began writing themselves across the paper. The first sentence appeared with graceful certainty. "Every promised bride begins by running from fear. Every true journey begins by walking toward understanding." Lyra looked up at Lucien, who seemed just as surprised as she was. "Have you ever seen this before?" she asked softly. He slowly shook his head. "No. The book has remained closed for hundreds of years." The sanctuary suddenly filled with a gentle silver breeze as another page turned by itself. This time, an ancient map appeared, revealing a forgotten place hidden beyond every kingdom. At its center glowed a single symbol identical to the moon promise mark upon Lyra's wrist, suggesting that the greatest secret of the moon goddess had never been hidden inside the temple at all, but somewhere far beyond the world either of them had ever known. Lyra stood motionless before the ancient crystal book as the glowing map continued shimmering across its open pages. The silver symbol identical to the moon promise mark upon her wrist pulsed softly with every heartbeat, as though the sanctuary itself had recognized something long forgotten. She slowly reached toward the page, but stopped only inches away. "Where does this path lead?" she asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, the map shifted once more. Mountains, rivers, forests, and kingdoms slowly faded until only one brilliant silver road remained, stretching beyond the edge of every known land. The elder priestesses exchanged thoughtful glances. Even they had never witnessed the Book of the First Promise reveal a destination beyond the ancient kingdoms. The eldest priestess gently closed her eyes before speaking. "The moon goddess only reveals the next step when both truth and trust begin walking together." Lyra turned toward King Lucian, still uncertain whether she should believe everything unfolding before her. "Why have you never entered this sanctuary before tonight?" she asked. Lucian smiled faintly. "Because no Alpha King may cross its threshold unless the Moon Temple invites him." Lyra looked around the magnificent sanctuary in surprise. "Even a king cannot command this place." "Especially not a king," the elder priestess answered softly. "The Moon Temple has never belonged to any crown." Those words settled gently inside Lyra's heart. For the first time, she realized every assumption she had carried since childhood had been shaped by stories told outside these sacred walls. Here, authority meant responsibility rather than control. Freedom existed alongside destiny, instead of opposing it. As the crystal book slowly turned another page, new silver writing appeared across the parchment. "The promise is not completed by acceptance. The promise begins with understanding." Lyra quietly repeated the words to herself. They felt strangely comforting. She had expected destiny to demand immediate obedience, yet every message invited patience instead. Lucian carefully approached the ancient book without touching it. "When I became Alpha King," he said calmly, "I was taught that if the promised bride ever appeared, my first duty would not be to claim her. My first duty would be to protect her freedom until she understood the truth for herself." Lyra looked at him with genuine curiosity. "And if I choose to leave?" Lucian answered without hesitation. "Then I would personally ensure your safe return home." Silence filled the sanctuary once more. The sincerity in his voice carried no hidden condition, no disappointment, only quiet respect. Before Lyra could respond, a gentle vibration spread through the marble floor beneath their feet. The towering silver pillars surrounding the sanctuary gradually illuminated one after another until countless ancient images appeared across their surfaces. They showed wolves from different kingdoms standing together beneath the moon goddess, sharing knowledge, food, and friendship long before borders separated them. Children laughed together without recognizing different pack symbols. Elders planted sacred trees side by side. Alpha leaders listened while Omega healers taught wisdom preserved across generations. The sanctuary revealed not power, but harmony. The elder priestess looked upon the images with peaceful gratitude. This was the world the first promise protected. Lyra slowly realized the promise had never centered upon marriage alone. It existed to preserve unity among kingdoms that had forgotten their shared beginning. As the final image faded, the silver mark upon her wrist brightened once again. A narrow doorway, invisible until that very moment, quietly opened within the far wall of the sanctuary. Beyond it stretched a luminous corridor lined with ancient moonstones leading deeper beneath the temple than anyone present had ever seen. A soft feminine voice echoed gently through the chamber. "Only those who seek truth before certainty may continue." The elder priestesses lowered their heads with astonishment. Even they had never witnessed the hidden passage open. Lucian looked toward Lyra, but made no attempt to lead. Instead, he stepped aside and calmly waited, allowing the next choice to belong entirely to her. Lyra quietly looked into the luminous passage stretching beyond the hidden doorway, its polished moonstone walls glowing with a soft silver radiance that seemed to breathe with every heartbeat. She could not explain why the unknown path no longer frightened her, as it had only moments before. Instead, it awakened a quiet curiosity that slowly outweighed the fear she had carried throughout her life. She turned toward King Lucian Ravenshade. "If I walk through that doorway," she asked softly, "what happens next?" Lucian answered with complete honesty. "I do not know." His response surprised her more than any ancient prophecy. "You truly do not know?" He gently smiled. "No Alpha King has ever entered the hidden passage. The Moon Temple has never invited one." The elder priestesses respectfully stepped aside, allowing Lyra to decide without influence. After a long moment of thoughtful silence, she slowly stepped across the threshold. As soon as her foot touched the glowing stone, the silver light gently expanded beneath her, illuminating delicate lunar symbols that had remained hidden for countless generations. Lucian followed several steps behind only after the Moon Temple itself quietly brightened, silently granting permission for him to enter beside her. The passage gradually opened into an immense underground library unlike anything either of them had imagined. Endless shelves carved from white crystal stretched farther than the eye could see, filled not with ordinary books, but with glowing crystal tablets suspended in the air by soft streams of moonlight. Ancient murals covered every wall, depicting wolves, humans, and countless forgotten kingdoms living together beneath the blessing of the moon goddess long before borders and rivalries had divided the world. Lyra slowly approached the nearest crystal tablet. The moment her fingertips gently brushed its surface, shimmering images appeared within the air before them. They showed the first Alpha King standing beside the very first promised bride as they planted a brilliant silver tree whose branches immediately spread across every kingdom. A calm feminine voice echoed gently through the library. The promise was never created to bind two hearts. It was created to unite every heart willing to choose compassion. Lyra watched in silent amazement as the vision continued unfolding. Families from distant packs shared harvests together. Children learned side by side regardless of their lineage. Alpha leaders listened to Omega healers with equal respect. The moon promise protected understanding rather than authority. Then the glowing vision suddenly changed. Another generation appeared, followed by a small group of influential elders quietly removing crystal tablets from the library before sealing the entrance forever. One elder spoke words that caused the entire vision to dim. If the kingdoms remember equality, they will no longer fear power. If they no longer fear power, they will no longer obey us. The images vanished, leaving only quiet silver light behind. Lyra slowly lowered her hand, her heart filled with disbelief. Someone erased the truth, she whispered. The eldest priestess nodded with quiet sadness. Not to protect the promise, but to protect their own influence. Lucian carefully looked across the forgotten library, realizing that generations of Alpha Kings had inherited only fragments of their own history. That is why every story became smaller with each generation, he said thoughtfully. The promise survived, but its purpose was forgotten. As Lyra continued exploring the ancient chamber, she noticed one final crystal tablet resting alone upon a white pedestal beneath a beam of moonlight. Unlike the others, it carried the exact same moon promise mark glowing upon her wrist. When she gently placed her hand above it, the tablet awakened instantly, projecting a breathtaking image of a distant island surrounded by shimmering silver. Waters where an enormous moon tree stood beneath an eternal full moon. Beneath the vision appeared a single sentence written in graceful ancient letters. The true beginning awaits the promised bride who chooses love freely rather than destiny blindly. As the vision of the distant moon tree slowly faded into shimmering silver light, the underground library became completely still once again. Lyra remained standing before the crystal tablet, unable to look away from the place where the mysterious island had appeared only moments earlier. Something deep within her heart recognized it, not as a memory she had lived, but as a promise waiting to be remembered. She gently lowered her hand from the glowing crystal. The silver mark upon her wrist continued pulsing with quiet warmth, almost as though responding to a heartbeat far beyond the walls of the sanctuary. King Lucian Ravenshade stepped beside her, but kept a respectful distance. He looked toward the fading image with thoughtful curiosity. That island does not exist on any royal map, he said softly. The eldest priestess nodded. Because it was never meant to be found by those searching for power. Lyra slowly turned toward her. Then who can find it? The priestess smiled gently. Only the one who seeks understanding before certainty. Before another question could be asked, the moon promise mark upon Lyra's wrist suddenly brightened. A gentle stream of silver light flowed from the mark into the crystal tablet, filling the library with soft radiance. One by one, countless crystal records suspended throughout the chamber awakened simultaneously. Instead of words, they revealed peaceful memories preserved by the moon goddess herself. Lyra watched generations of promised brides standing beside Alpha Kings from every age. None appeared frightened. None were forced. Every partnership began differently, yet each shared one remarkable truth. Every promised bride had first doubted the promise before choosing it freely. Tears quietly gathered in Lyra's eyes as another memory unfolded before her. The very first promised bride stood beneath the original moon tree, speaking to the first Alpha King. If love is chosen only, because destiny commands it, she said with quiet wisdom, then destiny has already failed. The first Alpha King smiled gently before answering. Then I will spend every day earning the choice you make tomorrow." The memory dissolved into silver light. Lyra slowly closed her eyes, allowing those words to settle within her heart. For the first time, she understood that the promise had never guaranteed love. It only created the opportunity for love to grow through trust, patience, and freedom. Lucien quietly watched her expression soften. He spoke only after several peaceful moments had passed. "When I was crowned Alpha King, the elders told me I must wait if the Moon Temple ever awakened." Lyra looked at him curiously. "How long?" Lucien smiled with calm acceptance. "As long as your heart needed." His answer carried no disappointment, only quiet certainty. The elder priestess looked toward both of them with gentle satisfaction. "Now you understand why no Alpha King could ever claim the promised bride. The promise belongs to the moon goddess, but the choice always belongs to the bride." Suddenly, the marble floor beneath the library shimmered once more. The glowing silver map returned, but this time another image slowly appeared beside the hidden island. It showed the sacred moon tree blooming with brilliant white flowers while wolves from every kingdom gathered beneath its branches without banners, crowns, or rival symbols separating them. A calm feminine voice echoed softly through the library. The moon promise was never created to unite two souls alone. It was entrusted to heal an entire world. The final words lingered gently in the air as the silver light gradually settled. Lyra looked toward the distant image of the blooming tree before quietly turning back to Lucien. For the first time since they met, she smiled naturally rather than cautiously. She had not yet chosen her future, but she no longer wished to run from it. Far beyond the sanctuary walls, hidden beneath the light of the full moon, the ancient moon tree upon the forgotten island quietly blossomed with its very first silver flower in 1,000 years, signaling that the oldest promise in the world had finally begun to awaken once again. The gentle fragrance of the first silver blossom lingered in the air long after the vision disappeared, leaving the underground library wrapped in peaceful silence. Lyra stood beside the glowing crystal tablet with a calmness she had never felt before. The fear that had driven her into the forbidden forest had slowly transformed into quiet determination. She no longer wanted to escape the unknown. She wanted to understand it. King Lucien Ravenshade noticed the change without saying a word. He simply smiled with the same patient kindness that had greeted her from the very beginning. Before either of them could speak, the crystal records surrounding the library suddenly dimmed. Their silver light remained, but a subtle shadow passed across every glowing tablet at once. The elder priestesses exchanged uneasy glances. One of them quietly whispered, "Someone is disturbing the ancient balance." A soft voice echoed through the chamber, not from the moon goddess, but from somewhere beyond the sanctuary walls. "Truth always threatens those who rule through fear." The words faded almost as quickly as they had appeared. Lyra looked toward the elder priestess. "Who was that?" The elder slowly lowered her eyes. "A voice from the old council." Lucien's expression became thoughtful. "The ancient elders." Lyra frowned slightly. "I thought they protected the kingdoms." Lucien answered carefully. "Most do. Not all." He led her toward another section of the forgotten library where a series of crystal murals rested beneath soft moonlight. As Lyra gently touched the nearest one, another preserved memory awakened. It showed several respected elders from long ago quietly removing the original teachings of the moon promise from public record. One elder calmly addressed the others. "If every Alpha and every Omega remember they were created equal beneath the moon goddess, our authority will slowly disappear." Another elder nodded. "Fear preserves order more easily than understanding." The vision dissolved into silver mist. Lyra stepped back in disbelief. "They changed history on purpose." The eldest priestess quietly nodded. Generation after generation, only fragments of the promise remained. Lucien looked toward the ancient murals with quiet sadness. Even Alpha Kings inherited incomplete truth. At that moment, another crystal mural awakened without being touched. This one revealed Lucien years earlier during his coronation. Surrounded by royal elders, he stood before the moon altar while the oldest guardian placed the royal crown upon his head. One elder spoke solemnly. "If the promised bride ever appears, you must never force her choice. Protect her freedom, even if that freedom leads her away from you forever." The younger Lucien simply bowed his head. I swear it. The memory faded. Lyra looked at him with new understanding. You already knew you might lose before we ever met. Lucian answered with complete honesty. Love that must be forced has already been lost. Those words settled gently inside her heart. She realized everything he had done since entering the sanctuary had reflected that promise. He had never asked her to stay. He had only offered truth. Suddenly the moon promise mark upon Lyra's wrist glowed brighter than ever before. Instead of spreading across the library, its light reached toward Lucian's wrist where a small silver symbol, nearly invisible until now, quietly appeared beneath his sleeve. The elder priestesses smiled peacefully. The guardian mark, one whispered. Lyra looked between the two glowing symbols. What does it mean? The eldest priestess answered softly. The promised bride receives the freedom to choose. The Alpha King receives the duty to protect that choice. No chains connected them. No magical bond compelled them. Only two different marks carrying two different responsibilities. Lyra smiled quietly as understanding finally replaced fear. At that very moment, far beyond the hidden sanctuary, the ancient moon tree blossomed with a second silver flower while, deep beneath the forgotten island, an enormous circular gateway carved with celestial symbols slowly awakened for the first time since the age of the first moon, waiting silently for the day the promise would be completed by choice rather than destiny. Lyra quietly looked at the glowing moon. Promise mark upon her wrist before lifting her eyes toward King Lucian Ravenshade. For the first time since entering the sanctuary, she no longer saw the distant Alpha King she had feared since childhood. She saw a man who had spent every moment protecting a choice that had never belonged to him. The realization settled gently within her heart like the first light of dawn. Without another word, she slowly walked through the underground library toward the broad staircase leading back to the moon temple above. Lucian followed several respectful steps behind, never attempting to walk beside her until she invited it. As they emerged into the great sanctuary once again, the towering silver pillars immediately brightened. The moon altar glowed with a peaceful radiance unlike anything the elder priestesses had witnessed in generations. Every ancient symbol surrounding the circular chamber awakened one after another, forming delicate streams of silver light that flowed across the polished marble floor before gathering around Lyra's feet. She quietly approached the altar while the entire sanctuary remained completely silent. No one urged her forward. No one asked for an answer. Even the elder priestesses lowered their heads, allowing the moon temple itself to wait patiently beside her. Lyra looked toward the magnificent mural of the first Alpha King and the first promised bride standing together beneath the moon goddess. She smiled softly as she finally understood what the ancient image had always meant. Neither figure reached for the other. They simply stood together because both had chosen the same path. She gently turned toward Lucian. When I ran from the festival, she said quietly, I believed someone wanted to decide my future for me. Lucian listened without interruption. Now I know the only person making that decision has always been me. He smiled warmly, not because she had accepted the promise, but because she had discovered the truth for herself. Lyra slowly lifted her left hand toward the glowing moon altar. The silver mark upon her wrist shone with calm brilliance as she spoke from the deepest place within her heart. I do not choose this path because of prophecy. I do not choose it because of fear. I do not choose it because a temple or a legend expects it. I choose it because trust cannot grow without freedom, and love cannot grow without trust. The moment her final words echoed through the sanctuary, the moon promise mark blossomed into countless tiny streams of silver light that floated gently throughout the temple like glowing flower petals carried by a peaceful breeze. The guardian mark upon Lucian's wrist quietly answered with its own gentle radiance, yet neither light attempted to bind the other. Instead, both streams rose together toward the ceiling where they formed a magnificent silver crescent above the moon altar. The elder priestesses smiled through quiet tears of joy. The promise has awakened, one whispered. Not by destiny alone, replied the eldest priestess with peaceful gratitude. By willing hearts. Outside the sanctuary, every white moon lily surrounding the ancient temple bloomed simultaneously beneath the evening sky. Throughout every kingdom, wolves looked upward in wonder as gentle silver light crossed the heavens without storm or thunder. Parents embraced their children. Travelers paused along quiet roads. Elders smiled as though remembering stories they had nearly forgotten. Deep within the Moon Temple, the great crystal book slowly turned to its final page. New silver words gracefully appeared across the paper. The promise is fulfilled when freedom chooses love. As the final sentence settled upon the page, the hidden map beneath the sanctuary expanded once more. The forgotten island beyond the northern sea glowed brighter than ever before, and the enormous celestial gateway resting beneath the ancient moon tree slowly began opening, revealing a path of shimmering silver light leading toward a land untouched since the age of the first moon. The silver light flowing from the awakened celestial gateway illuminated the sanctuary with a peaceful brilliance unlike anything recorded in the ancient crystal library. Lyra and King Lucian Ravenshade stood side by side before the moon altar, not because prophecy had placed them there, but because every choice along their journey had led them to this moment willingly. The elder priestesses quietly opened the great doors of the sanctuary, revealing a sky filled with countless silver stars. Beyond the temple, wolves from every kingdom had already gathered outside, drawn not by commands from a king, but by the extraordinary light spreading gently across the horizon. Families, elders, travelers, scholars, alpha leaders, beta guardians, and omega healers all looked toward the ancient sanctuary with hopeful expressions. None fully understood what had happened, yet everyone could feel that something long forgotten had finally returned. Lyra slowly walked toward the temple entrance and looked across the peaceful gathering below. Only days earlier she had believed destiny existed to take freedom away. Now she understood that true destiny simply invited each person to become the best version of themselves. She turned toward Lucian with a warm smile that carried no uncertainty. "I spent my entire life running because I believed promises could become chains," she said softly. "Now I understand that the strongest promise is the one we choose every single day." Lucian nodded gently. "And every day after today, I will continue earning that choice." Their words carried through the quiet sanctuary, reminding everyone present that leadership and love were never gifts that could simply be claimed. They had to be lived with humility, patience, and trust. The moon promise mark upon Lyra's wrist and the guardian mark upon Lucian's wrist glowed together once more, sending graceful streams of silver light into the evening sky. Across every kingdom, ancient moon trees that had remained dormant for generations quietly blossomed with brilliant white flowers. Forgotten temples hidden deep within peaceful forests awakened beneath the full moon. Ancient wells reflected silver constellations never before visible. Elders who had preserved only fragments of history suddenly remembered forgotten songs passed down by their ancestors. Children laughed beneath blooming branches while parents looked toward the heavens with renewed hope for the generations yet to come. Deep beyond the northern sea, the forgotten island revealed by the crystal map emerged from a veil of shimmering mist for the first time in 1,000 years. The magnificent moon tree standing at its center now bloomed completely, its silver leaves glowing beneath an eternal full moon. Beneath its roots, the celestial gateway opened fully, revealing not a throne, not a weapon, and not a hidden kingdom waiting to be conquered, but a peaceful valley filled with crystal rivers, luminous forests, and countless ancient temples where the earliest guardians of harmony had once lived together. The final page of the Book of the First Promise quietly filled with one last message written in elegant silver letters. Power protects for a season. Wisdom guides for a lifetime. Love, freely chosen, transforms generations. The elder priestesses gently closed the crystal book, knowing its purpose had finally been fulfilled. Lyra and Lucian looked toward the distant northern horizon where the first rays of dawn slowly replaced the moonlight. Their greatest adventure had not ended within the sanctuary. It had only just begun beyond the open gateway, carrying with it the hope of restoring forgotten wisdom to every kingdom willing to embrace compassion over fear, understanding over pride, and unity over division. Somewhere beyond that peaceful horizon, countless untold stories patiently waited beneath the eternal light of the moon goddess, ready for those courageous enough to seek truth before certainty and kindness before power.